Today's guest is a very special one. His name is David Rhodes, and if you don't know who he is, he's actually one of the biggest players for a long time in the mining industry. He has a career that's been going on for a long time. He's a managing director of Endeavour Financial, and if you don't know, Endeavour is one of the top mining financial advisory firms, worked with all types of many of the biggest companies that are out there today. And he is also here to talk a bit about his new project, which is Altale Mining, which is Spanish for high grade. And so without further ado, this is going to be a great episode for everyone that's interested in mining stock investing, because we've got someone that's put together over $10 billion worth of financing and deals in the mining industry. So make sure you hit the like button on this video. Give us a comment down below and let us know if you're excited about today's episode. And let's dive right into it. So it's good to see you, David.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been around the block in the mining industry for a long time, and you've seen different seasons of the industry. And I wonder, how does right now compare to whether it's previous bull markets in commodities, precious metals? How does right now compare when we've got an underinvestment in mines, we've got MMT money printing at the highest degree, more so than anyone expected? So what's your feeling on right now?
Yeah, I mean, the commodity space now is in a great place. And that's purely due to lack of investment. I mean, the last 10 years, it has been really tough in the business. There's been no capital, no new mines. So you've got a factor where you've got now growth picking up. You've got demand for material, metals, minerals. And guess what? There's been no investment. So there's a shortage of mines, shortage of new production coming on stream. Therefore, you've got this supply gap, which is pushing the price up. So it's the perfect scenario you have now where most metals, most minerals are at all-time highs or getting there. And that just shows you really the typical supply-demand gap you get in the mining space.
So you've been with Endeavour Financial, all types of companies, right? So in all types of commodities and metals, what is your biggest interest? What are you most excited about in the metals and commodities space right now?
It's a good point. I think there's a couple of things which are exciting the marketplace. I mean, firstly, green metals. So you're talking the EV stuff. That's great. I mean, it's green. You can see electric vehicles. You can see the wind farms, the solar panels. You can see the major investment going to that part of. So that's your base metals. So that's your copper, the key ingredient in all of that. Lithium, those types of minerals, are big in that space. But the key thing in all of this, and something that's kept this business alive, is gold. So gold, copper, gold is a good, and has always been a good store of value. It's something which obviously is used not just in jewelry, but used in manufacturing. And gold is really, the last 10 years, some of the base metals have been weak, but one product and one metal that's been strong and being supportive in the industry is gold. So I think, if you look on the outlook as a business, you can look at some of the green metals, which have some excitement in them. But the key driver for us as a business has been gold. It's got a good value, store of value. It's a good, we call it a commodity because it's gold, it's a metal, but in reality, it's a financial instrument. So it's very much on the cusp of being not just a metal, but also a financial instrument, which gives it that dual attraction for people.
And that's the focus with Altale?
Yeah, Altale is a good description of what is a company that has a bit of both. So we've got polymetallic deposits. So we have a bit of base metals, which I mentioned, the copper and some of the zinc. So some of those commodities that are in demand now because of the growth in the world expansion. And then we also have gold as well. So we've got a bit of both. So we're quite a unique vehicle, quite a unique company in the set. We're producing both of those products. So that gives you that unique approach, I think, both the gold side and also the base metal side.
What's your opinion on the future of gold, right? Like the environment right now, from if we purely look at it as a financial instrument, is unbelievable. I mean, I don't know if you saw in the United States recently, there's a talk of the $3.5 trillion pass. And I'm not sure if you saw, but President Biden, his press secretary, they all said that $3.5 trillion equals zero somehow. I'm not sure quite how, but we're at an all-time level beyond anything one could imagine with this money printing. How do you think gold fits into this equation moving forward? Because it seems like there's no turning back, right? Paul Volcker, before, but if you do that to the interest rates and you try to raise them now, I mean, it could get quite bad. And I wonder, how does gold fit into this picture, and what's your overall view on this macro financial environment?
Yeah, no, it's a obviously fascinating situation we're in. We're all-time highs on the debt limits, and they're trying to raise them or not raise them, and there's a whole political debate about debt limits as well, which isn't helping, obviously, the uncertainty. So, I mean, gold is very much, as I say, a store of value. It's a US dollar product. It's something which, in times of uncertainty, people will buy because it is a store well. But additionally, it's a product where if you have low interest rates, it's also in demand. Weak dollar, low interest rates, that's very much when gold shines. And we've seen that over the last year or so, the highs in the gold market based on low interest rates. And you mentioned the debt. If you have a lot of debt, the one thing you don't want to do is pay a lot of interest. So you do not want high interest rates. I know the Fed talk about interest rates, but you imagine if they put the interest rates up to 3%, that's a lot of money they've got to pay on those trillions, isn't it? So guess what? People go, interest rates are going to go up a lot. And I go, I wouldn't put them up. If I controlled my interest rate and I had all that debt, I would not be putting the interest rate. You may have to tweak it a bit just to calm the markets down, because obviously inflation, and it sound like you're doing the right thing, which the Fed has to sound like it's doing the right thing. But I can't see interest rates going up. What I can see is the dollar weakening, because the easiest way to get rid of debt is to have weak dollar. So you print more and you just wipe off your debt that way. And that is good for gold. Low interest rates, weak dollar, because gold is priced in US dollars, means obviously the purchasing power, you can buy more gold. So both of those factors, which I see as the short to medium term, is good for gold.
Yeah, that's kind of the interesting puzzle piece, right? Some people believe that believe what the Fed says. I do not. I think they're probably talking the market down, and they probably know they need to weaken the dollar, but they can't come out and say that, because then you have widespread, panic or distrust. And so my feeling is that they're just kind of talking the market down, knowing they're going to go the other way. What do you feel about that? In your opinion, do you think that they believe what they're saying there on the rise of interest rates and such, or do you think that's just kind of doing the talk, knowing they're going to dance the other way?
Yeah, as I say, you do look at the fundamentals, and you can't raise interest rates with that much debt. You can't look to purposely reduce your exchange rate either. You can't weaken the dollar too much, because then other currencies will do the same. It comes to race to the bottom, and that's obviously where the Fed's got to be clever, and obviously weaken the dollar slowly and measuredly, not announce it, because obviously then all the other countries are going to do the same. The Chinese will be, and the emerging markets obviously will have to, because most of the emerging market debt is in dollars. So the exchange rate matters, and obviously, so I agree with you. There is a lot of talk. The Fed is known as the put for the stock market at the moment. So as soon as market goes down, there'll be hand goes up. Yeah, we're going to keep, we're not going to taper. We're going to keep interest rates low, and off goes the stock market. So that has to rebalance, and I think that's happening now, because the Fed realizes it's got itself in a tough position. But for the Fed, they are, with the amount of debt they have, interest rates have to stay low. The dollar has to weaken, but all has to be done carefully managed. Otherwise, as I say, you get a rush to the bottom from other currencies.
Yeah, whether it's gold, whether it's silver, whether it's various commodities and various mining stocks, I remain long-term bullish, because I can't envision a scenario where this doesn't continue, even if inflation continues to get out of control. Because as you state, if they raise these interest rates, there's going to be some issues. And so that kind of brings us to this business environment. As someone like yourself that's been at the helm of a lot of big projects, so why is it that you decided that you wanted to get involved in Audelay? I mean, you kind of are the type of guy that you can pick kind of and choose whatever types of projects. I'm sure a million of them come at you. So give us an idea.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. We do. We've been at this. I've been at this over 20 years. Been the highs and lows of boom and bust in the commodity cycle as you get from time to time. And this opportunity, very attractive. They've got an existing producing asset called Campo Morado. So they've got cash flow coming in from that asset, which funds the business. And they've got a very exciting development project called Tajoreto, which is in Mexico. So that asset, when we came into Ultimately, that was half built. They needed the last remaining dollars to get it into production. So we came in with a half-built project, so we could do proper due diligence, double check, obviously, what's been built. That shortens obviously the time to production, as you can imagine, because half built, only another 6 months to go. So that certainly helps on the risk profiling. When you look at it's not a greenfield, it's not a brand new mine, which obviously has more uncertainty. So risk profile is high. So we raised the finance, working with Ultimately, the management team, invested ourselves, put in some other capital, over $20 million we raised to fund the business, and it's now on track. So we're hoping, by the end of this year, beginning of next year, to get some production coming out of Tajoreto. So we'll have two mines. So one existing mine and the second mine coming up.
And the first mine's primarily, as you said, polymetallic, whereas this new one's is going to be gold centric, correct?
Correct, yeah. So both of them are polymetallic, but the Tajoreto mine, the new one, has a high grade gold aspect to it. So it's pretty exciting in the sense that Campo Morado, the existing mine, we're spending a lot of money looking at ways to improve it. This is the metallurgy of that mine. Most of the gold and silver isn't recovered from Campo Morado. So we have, as a board, and part of our investment strategy is looking at how we can unlock that potential there. So there's good upside at Campo Morado. Obviously, it takes time to do the metallurgical testing, work out how the chemistry works, and that's what we're spending our time doing. And hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll crack that. And that'll be a great upside, because you can not get it won't just be polymetallic, as you said, which is base metals. We'll also be able to get some gold out of it. So we'll get some good gold, which obviously then puts that as a much more profitable, much more cash flow generating asset. So fingers crossed, we can crack that one in the next couple of months. And as you say, Tajoreto it's a polymetallic, but it's high grade on the gold side. So significant revenue is from the gold. So that's where that becomes a gold mine for the business.
Now, you guys trade US and Canada?
Yep, sure do. Yeah, we've just gone through and got refreshed our US listing. So we're now on the QX.
So you've been in this industry for a while, and there's a lot of folks that say...
You keep saying I've been in the industry a while. I'm experienced.
It's amazing, right?
Like, you make me sound old.
No, I'm making you sound experienced. Okay, cool. Here's the thing, right? So there's a lot of people that jump in with a project when the market's going up, and there's not really an intention to produce it, or the asset isn't that great. Whereas you guys are getting so many deals brought to you, and you've really been able to see the back door of the industry. And I want to get an idea of, when people say, reserves are not being replenished, and that we're headed to this type of crunch, whether it's with gold or whether it's with other commodities. What is your take on that? And what are you guys seeing behind the scenes that other people aren't, that whether it's in base metals, whether it's in gold, whether it's in silver?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple in the way we look at it. So if you look at the investment cycle in the mining space, so last 10 years, limited investment in new mines. So to develop a new mine, it takes, from, depending on the stage that you're looking at it, it probably takes over 10 years, 10 to 15 years. You've got to find it. You've got to do all the reports, drilling, report studies. So it probably takes 10 years from finding it to do the studies, and can be longer depending on obviously the type of ore body, location, whatever it might be. So you've got 10-year lag before you can even start building the mine. And then it may take you 2 years to build it. So you've got a lag of 12 years. So when people say there's a shortage of metal, unless there's some old mines you can switch on, or, for example, this mine, Taweto, which is half built, which is only 6 months to get into production. Unless you've got those mines, all the other mines are 12 years away from actually getting production into the system. So that's when you're getting a shortage and you're getting demand for metal, a long period of sustained prices to get these new mines into production. Because one thing that drives investment is higher prices. Makes sense, because then you want to get the capital. You can't get capital in low prices. You only get capital in the higher prices. That's when the market opens up. So you have a good period of time, for example, Altalay, with its 2 mines, to make money before new supply comes on, which will slowly then, as supply comes on, obviously, demand and supply will eventually match. And obviously that's when prices will start to moderate. But you get these, until then, you get these very high price environments to drive in that new capital, to drive up that new supply.
And I'm assuming with Altalay, one of the deciding factors when you guys are getting so many deals put on the desk or opportunities for financing was the fact that this isn't a 12-year project to be producing.
Yeah. 6 months. I mean, 6 months and you've got, you're in this market. 6 months and you've suddenly got the gold price, you've got the base metal prices, which are all at good high levels, compared to other projects which are 2 years to be built, or 5 years, more studies to be done, then they have to be built. So it's the short route to cash flow, which is the key. Cash is key here.
Now, you've seen a lot of companies succeed and a lot of them not succeed. And I'm curious, what would you say is the differentiating factor? And I guess, you liken it to a success principles. What have been the key things that you've seen? We love to talk gold, we love to talk silver, we love to talk mining stocks, but when I have someone that's as successful as you are, come on, I also like to kind of peel it back a little bit. What's been some of the differentiating qualities that you've seen between successful entrepreneurs, successful businesses, and the ones that think they're going to make it and they don't?
Yeah, in mining, there's a couple of factors. Firstly, you need a good deposit. I mean, that is what is your cash flow. So you need to make sure that your deposit, the grade, the opportunity that you're exploiting is reasonable. So you need a good deposit. Everything else, to be blunt, is down to good management and having the right financial backing and skill sets to manage the risks of mining. So long as the deposit is sound, you've got your resources, you've got your reserves, it's a reasonable grade. It's a deposit which will be a mine, which is the key thing. Some deposits, you look at them, they're too low grade, there won't be a mine. Obviously, we don't invest in those companies. So you're looking at ore bodies that will become a mine, whether it's gold or base metals, whatever it is. And then comes to management, ability to execute. And obviously the key factor, part of that, is having the capital behind it to be able to develop. And that is not just it's not just a people thing. It's, a lot of this business is you've got to go to understand what investors want, how to attract that capital at the lowest cost, which obviously then generates returns for the business. So source of capital is important. And that comes by being in the business. When you've been in the business over 20 years, people worked with you, you've made money for them in the past, you've been very successful, therefore that attracts capital. And that's one of the factors that we help these companies. So attract capital into businesses at the lowest cost possible to provide the best return for the company and the shareholders.
What inning would you say we're in? I guess if we talk precious metals specifically, what inning would you say we're in of this market?
Yes, it's apart from you talking baseball, of course, and I'm an English person, so I lived in New York. So
all right, we're talking a 9-inning game here, David.
Yeah, I did see the Mets, so that's okay. It was my team at the time. So I'd say we're probably in the fourth, and whether we go into overtime, to mix my metaphors on sports, we'll see. It's really driven by the situation we're in, as a world, with the amount of debt, interest rates, etc. So that will continue. And there's so many uncertainties now, and the world is becoming more uncertain. With China, Taiwan, that's pretty scary to think of these discussions there. That means, okay, where do you put your money? Gold obviously is a store of value. And obviously, in times of geopolitical difficulty, uncertainty, gold is often used as a store of value, and that is the key part of why we support gold. And I don't see the world changing and getting any better for a long time. The pandemic obviously has affected us all, debt, the whole how we work, and that's where gold is a great store of value as well as silver.
What do you think the next leg up will be for gold and silver? There's a lot of investors wondering, there's this, as you stated, over the last 10 years, gold's had a nice, solid, consistent move, but it's stalled. And more so than ever, the macro factors seem to favor it. And in your opinion, I wonder, what do you think the cause for a next leg up will be?
There are a couple of factors. We mentioned the financial aspects, interest rates, weakening dollar. I think those two factors will assist and help gold. The other factor, which is not just gold, but also mining stocks, is really the global stock markets. So you look at the Dow, you look at the markets, there's uncertainty, they're going up and down, it's the up, up, up. I mean, if I was an investor, you just buy Apple, just doubles every day. Not double, it just goes up. Right. But an easy ride, wasn't it? The stock markets was okay, it went down 5%, don't worry, Fed comes out, off it goes, up 10%. So why look at mining stocks? Why look at gold? Because you just go into the big techs and make money. As that's getting more difficult, as we're seeing over the last couple of weeks, you've got to be clever and look for better opportunities. And that's where mining, in my view, we suddenly get more capital coming in, more investors going, okay, where do I make my returns? What has got high metal prices? What has got good margin business? And that's mining at the moment. So the big change, I think, not just in mining, but also in gold, will be where investors start looking for the best, return for their buck. And it is in mining at this point in time. Commodities, oil prices, for example, you've seen on the oil side as well. So commodities are, with the margins, good businesses to own. They've got good returns for their shareholders. The market just needs to see that. And obviously what will help will be obviously the uncertainty and what I see as, the fall in global stock markets will mean investors need to look a little bit harder and look at mining and gold and other metals.
So give us some of the other exciting things or things that you love most about the Altalay project, some things that I missed that you want people to know about.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is obviously I mentioned Taweto getting into production, but we're starting obviously with one mill, and once we get up and running, then we'll start expanding that operation. So you'll see that operation; it's a world-class operation. We're starting small, but we'll keep expanding. So you'll get a lot of good news coming out. Once we get into production, about expansion, increasing the size of the mine and the size of the returns and cash coming at it for investors. So that's number one. That's important. I mentioned Campo and what we're trying to do there to fix the metallurgy, which will improve that. But I think you'll just see a growth story of continued growth, continued development of our assets to maximize value.
Fantastic. Now, in conclusion here, what is your opinion on the macro factor in that? Do you believe that we're headed towards just a sustained constant inflation? You've had Dr. Michael Burry from The Big Short say he thinks there's hyperinflation. You've got other people, smart people, that think everything's gonna crash. Where do you fall on that scale, and how does that fit into gold, silver, and mining stocks?
Yeah, well, I kind of think we've had inflation for a long time. I don't know about you guys, but my bills haven't been going down for a long time. So, just the general bills of, for services and for, electricity and stuff like, they've been going up way before, obviously, the increases we're now seeing even further with a bit of inflation coming through on the cost side of things. I think the key driver there is, yes, we will have inflation. I think, as we'll see, that will come off. So I don't think that's a long term. I know the Fed says it's just transitory. Yeah, it may be longer, than we expect, but it will come off. We have a lot of issues with the pandemic over, global shipments, global issues with around the marketplace. So I think that will definitely, work its way through the system. Inflation will fall. Interest rates won't need to go up as much. So I think the key driver for, the exciting thing for the mining and metal space is obviously the big global demand we're seeing for materials, And obviously interest rates won't go as high as everybody expects, which obviously is good for metal prices.
So we've got Ole and David Rhodes here, traded in the United States at ATLYF and in Canada at ATLY. David, we want to thank you for coming on today. Looking forward to getting some updates as you guys move into production. And any last things you want to suggest, say?
No, all covered. Thank you very much, Jake. I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Well, we'll look forward to some great news coming up here soon. We want to thank everyone for watching today's episode. Make sure you hit that bell notification, like this video to send it out into the YouTube universe. Give us a comment down below that says Go Gold Go right there down below. We'll have the link to the Ultitlay website right there down below for you to check out. And we want to thank David for coming on today.